Dear Leo, radiant heart of the zodiac, bold keeper of the flame, let me ask you this: what if today isn't random at all? What if something you cannot avoid is already moving toward you, not to test you, but to awaken you? This is not just another horoscope. This is your message from the universe, a transmission your soul requested long before you clicked play. So breathe that in. Because Leo, something inevitable is coming. And yes, it's happening to you today. You didn't find this video by chance. You were drawn here because the energy that surrounds this moment matches something stirring inside you. Maybe it's a quiet unease you've been carrying, a restlessness that doesn't have words yet. Or maybe it's the knowing that a shift, a real one, is about to begin. Whatever brought you here, know this: your timing is perfect, your presence is guided, and your soul is ready. At Eternal Mindfulness, we don't just read horoscopes, we decode spiritual turning points. And today, June 18th, marks one for you. This video is here to illuminate what's unfolding in your inner world and the path ahead. Because what's coming is not a disruption. It's an invitation. An invitation to stop performing, stop pleasing, and start living as the fire you truly are. You've spent so much of your life holding it all together, haven't you? Being the light for others. The strong one. The one who shows up. But the universe is asking you now, who are you when no one's watching? When the applause fades and it's just you and your truth? This energy we're stepping into isn't soft. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. And that's what makes it sacred. This is your soul's rite of passage, Leo, not to break you down, but to break you open. Now, before we go deeper into what this all means, the timing, the tarot, the numerology, the shift in your relationships, career, and self-identity, I want to take a moment to thank you. Thank you for being here, for trusting your intuition enough to listen, and for sharing this sacred space with me. Every like, every comment, every subscription brings more light to this community we're building, and I am truly grateful you're a part of it. And believe me when I say this, you'll want to stay with me until the very end of today's reading, because what the universe is about to reveal is extraordinary. So Leo, help anchor this moment by commenting your first name and birth date below. Let us know you've arrived. Let us know you feel the shift. Your words might just be the sign another Leo needs today to feel seen, safe, and understood. Let's begin. When the sun appears reversed in a reading for Leo, it doesn't suggest that your light has vanished, it suggests that it has been hidden, distorted, or misunderstood. You are still radiant at your core, still infused with divine brilliance, but the way that radiance has been expressed may no longer align with your truth. The reversal of the sun isn't a loss of light, it's an invitation to find a purer source of it. It whispers that the joy you've projected outward, the strength you've worked so hard to display, may have begun to disconnect from the quiet inner knowing of who you really are. And that disconnection is not a flaw, it is a signal. A sacred pause. A call to turn your awareness inward and ask, am I shining for approval, or am I shining from truth? The path of Leo is often one of visibility, generosity, and creative force. But there is a hidden pressure that comes with being seen, especially when being seen becomes a performance. Sometimes, we wear our light like armor, hoping it will protect us from vulnerability. We build personas that earn praise, leadership roles that offer status, and identities that feel secure. But over time, these roles can harden into cages, locking us out of our own softness. The reversed sun gently removes those layers, not to leave you exposed, but to help you feel the warmth of your own heart again, raw, honest, and unfiltered. This is where the deeper transformation begins. Not through struggle, but through stillness. Just as the lotus grows through mud and darkness, so too do we reclaim ourselves when we sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. The reversal asks you to be present with what feels out of alignment, not to fix it immediately, but to understand what it's trying to show you. Where do you pretend to be fine when you're not? Where have you said yes out of fear of being seen as difficult, or not enough? The healing begins when you can admit those truths without shame, because what's real is never wrong. What's honest is never weak. The timing of this shift is not random. The cosmos does not deal in coincidence. And as we align this message with your personal birth window from July 23 to August 22, we begin to see how this illumination touches different corners of your life. If you were born between July 23 and August 1, the light is shining on the realm of love, family, and emotional intimacy. You may find that someone close to you, perhaps a partner, a parent, or a child, reflects a hidden truth back to you that you've long avoided. This isn't meant to wound you, it's meant to free you from the weight of silent expectations. Can you allow love to flow without control? Can you let someone truly see your heart, even if it trembles? For those born August 2 to August 12, the sun's reversal touches your identity as a leader, a doer, a presence in the world. Perhaps an unexpected challenge appears at work, or an opportunity arises that forces a quick decision. But instead of rushing to perform, pause and ask, am I acting from alignment or image? The universe is gently reminding you that true power doesn't come from provenance, it comes from presence. And for those born August 13 to August 22, this is a sacred unraveling of ego. You may feel disoriented, like your old roles or definitions no longer fit. That's not failure, that's freedom. You are shedding skin because your soul has outgrown the old structure. Let the old identity fall. You're not losing yourself. You're finally making space to meet who you've always been beneath the performance. Whatever group you belong to, know this: your experience is valid, your shift is sacred, and your presence here matters. If you feel seen by this message, I invite you to comment below with your name and birth date. Let this be your declaration, not just to the community, but to yourself, that you are ready to stop dimming and start living as your truest light. As we move deeper into this journey, Leo, the energy begins to concentrate. What was once ethereal and emotional now seeks form, structure, and embodiment, and that's exactly what the number 8 brings into focus. In numerology, 8 is the number of power, influence, legacy, and cause and effect. But not all power is the same. The number 8 doesn't ask whether you have power. It asks where your power comes from, and more importantly, whether it is built on force or rooted in clarity. On this day, June 18th, the cosmic alignment invites you to redefine your relationship with power. Not the external kind that demands attention or dominance, but the internal kind, the kind that doesn't shout, yet cannot be ignored. True power, as the number 8 teaches us, is quiet. It is steady. It is self-owned. Many people chase power through controlling outcomes, people, situations, even their own image. And while that kind of effort can bring temporary success, it is exhausting, fragile, and often rooted in fear. The kind of power that lasts, that transforms, that heals comes not from controlling, but from mastering your response. It is choosing presence over performance. It is the authority that arises when you no longer feel the need to prove anything. There's a quiet dignity in that. And Leo, as someone who naturally radiates presence, your task now is to discover how to carry your light without needing others to reflect it back. The number 8 also speaks to cycles. What you send out, you receive. Not as punishment or reward, but as natural echo. On a deeper level, this mirrors a universal truth: everything you do, say, or think plants a seed. Those seeds grow silently, and one day they bloom into the circumstances you call your life. If your actions are fueled by comparison, anxiety, or the need to stay relevant, the harvest may come tangled with dissatisfaction. But if your choices are made from clarity, compassion, and enough stillness to hear your own heart, what grows from that will nourish you for years to come. There's a lesson here that aligns beautifully with a truth often overlooked: stability doesn't come from things staying the same. It comes from learning how to move with change without losing your center. Just like a mountain holds its shape through wind and weather, you too can learn to stay rooted no matter what shifts around you. This is the kind of strength the golden color symbolizes: the hue of inner authority, earned not by control but by alignment. Gold doesn't need to compete with anything around it. It shines because it is whole. And so, this is your invitation not to grasp for more, but to come back to what's already within. Try this, today. Take 20 minutes to sit quietly with yourself. No phone. No performance. Just your breath, your thoughts, and the question: what does power mean to me now? Let that question guide you gently. Not with urgency, but with honesty. And if you feel pulled to compare your journey to others, especially through the lens of social media, pause and remind yourself: visibility does not equal value. Success is not a formula to mimic. The truest measure of strength is how deeply you can trust yourself, even when no one is watching. Your light, Leo, does not need validation to shine. Today is not about becoming more. It is about remembering that what you are when anchored in integrity is already enough. And from that space, the kind of power that radiates from your heart will never burn out. It will simply grow quieter, wiser, and infinitely more real. Following the exploration of power through the lens of inner alignment, we now arrive at one of the most revealing mirrors of all: your relationship with work and finances. These areas don't just reflect how you earn or lead, they quietly reveal how you define yourself, what you feel you must uphold, and what you're afraid to let go of. The appearance of the Emperor in reverse at this point is not a warning of collapse, but a gentle invitation to examine the foundations of your ambition. It asks: are you leading from grounded clarity, or simply performing strength to avoid disappointment? The reversed Emperor often appears when responsibility begins to feel like a burden instead of a purpose. You may have taken on roles, expectations, or structures that once served you well but now feel more like armor than alignment. This moment is asking for courage, not the kind that charges forward, but the kind that knows when to pause. True authority doesn't come from dominating the world outside of you. It comes from the quiet knowing of what no longer belongs inside your life. And while stepping back can feel like weakness in a culture obsessed with constant progress, choosing stillness when your direction is unclear is an act of deep maturity. In the natural world, everything has its seasons. Trees do not force their leaves to grow when winter insists on stillness. The river does not rush when the tide recedes. In the same way, Leo, your timing is sacred. Trusting when to wait is as powerful as knowing when to act. If work has begun to feel like a performance, or if your sense of self-worth is entangled with a job title, paycheck, or public image, this is your invitation to gently unwind those threads. You are not your position. You are not your productivity. These are garments you wear for a time, but they are not the soul underneath. When your outer role no longer reflects your inner truth, disconnection grows. And the longer you cling to something that has passed its season, the heavier it becomes. This is why you may feel restless, uninspired, or even strangely invisible despite doing everything right. It's not failure. It's misalignment. And that misalignment is a call back to authenticity. One way to work with this energy today is through the act of conscious redirection. Sit down and write a personal work manifesto, not the version you think others want to hear, but the one that reflects who you are now. Ask yourself, what kind of impact do I truly want to make? What am I no longer willing to compromise for success? What part of my current role supports my spirit, and what part silently suppresses it? The answers don't have to be loud. They just have to be honest. Financially, this is also a powerful time to revisit your definition of value. Instead of asking how much something costs, ask how much it truly contributes to your well-being. Are your spending habits supporting your peace, or feeding your need for distraction or status? The Emperor reversed reminds us that discipline without heart becomes rigidity, and abundance without meaning becomes emptiness. This isn't about guilt. It's about grace. It's about choosing to build a life where your work, your worth, and your wealth all flow from the same place, intention. There is a principle often spoken by those who live in deep awareness: if you don't know the way, stop walking. Let the dust settle. Let the waters clear. And only then, when the silence grows luminous, take one step, just one, in the direction that feels less like pressure and more like peace. That's where your true empire begins. Not in control, but in clarity. Not in force, but in flow. Not in the title you hold, but in the truth you embody. And when you begin again from that place, Leo, there is nothing you cannot build. Coming off the heels of redefining your relationship with power and purpose, the energy now softens, but not in a way that makes it any less potent. In fact, what comes next may be the most courageous part of all. We move from external structures to the space where those structures often begin to crack, the heart. The appearance of the Strength card in this part of your reading isn't about brute force or resilience for its own sake, it's about a quieter kind of bravery. It's the courage to feel what you've been avoiding, to speak what you've swallowed, and to walk away from what no longer allows you to be fully alive. Love, in its truest form, does not require performance. And yet, so often, we find ourselves staying in relationships, romantic, familial, or even friendships, because they look right, feel familiar, or give us a false sense of stability. We confuse longevity with alignment, and comfort with truth. But there comes a point where pretending becomes heavier than being alone. That moment is not a failure, it's a signal. And for you, Leo, someone whose very essence is tied to the fire of the heart, the pain of disconnection from your own emotional truth can become unbearable when left unspoken. This is where the lesson deepens. Strength in this context means choosing honesty over harmony. It means being willing to rupture the illusion of closeness in order to pursue genuine intimacy. Because true connection cannot exist where authenticity has been sacrificed. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is say what you really feel, not to hurt anyone, but to stop hurting yourself. And sometimes, the most powerful form of love is the one you give to yourself, be no longer staying where your light is dimmed to keep the peace. There's an old teaching that reminds us, nothing we cling to out of fear will ever bring peace. Love born from obligation, or preserved through silence, will always carry resentment like a shadow. It's better to let something shift gently, honestly, than to carry it forward out of guilt or habit. When you honor what your heart is truly whispering, you open space for a deeper kind of connection to arrive. Or sometimes, for a current relationship to evolve into something far more honest and whole than it ever was before. One way to begin reconnecting with your inner emotional truth is through expression, private, unfiltered, and safe. Take a moment to write a letter you never planned to send. Pour into it every word you've held back, every truth you've swallowed, every wish you've ignored. Let your heart speak freely, without judgment. This simple act allows you to listen to yourself, perhaps for the first time in a long time. And then, offer yourself the kindness and attention you so often give to others. Take yourself out. Not to distract, but to meet yourself again quietly, curiously, gently. Share a meal with yourself. Sit beneath the sky with a notebook. Ask your heart what it needs. This is not about isolating. It's about returning. When we stop filling our time with noise, we finally hear the signal beneath the static. Leo, your strength does not lie in how much you can hold in. It lies in how much you're willing to let out. Not as a display, but as a release. You were not born to live behind polite smiles or scripted roles. You were born to love with fire, to live with openness, and to choose honesty even when it trembles. And when you do, when you show up fully without needing to be perfect or pleasing, that is when real love has a chance to find you. Or perhaps, to finally see you as you truly are. After exploring the honesty of the heart, it becomes clear that the journey isn't about fixing what's broken, it's about releasing what no longer serves who you're becoming. This is where the energy begins to shift from emotional courage to spiritual integration. When the Judgment card appears, especially for Leo, it signals more than just a turning point, it marks a rebirth. But not the dramatic kind that looks impressive from the outside. This is a quiet but undeniable shift, a recognition that your old definition of self no longer fits the life you're growing into. There comes a moment on every path when I stops being a label and starts becoming a living process. That moment is now. The astrology supports this transition with intensity. As the Sun, your ruling planet, forms a tense aspect with Saturn, there is pressure to mature. But not the kind of maturity that demands conformity or perfection. This is a deeper form of growth, the kind that asks you to take responsibility not just for your choices, but for your identity. Who are you becoming when no one is watching? Who are you without the titles, the roles, the armor? These questions don't require answers today. But they do ask for your attention. Letting go of an old version of yourself isn't always painful, but it is disorienting. The habits, thoughts, and even belongings that once anchored your sense of self may now feel heavy, irrelevant, or false. That's not a failure, it's a sign of evolution. As you begin to release these layers, you create space for something more aligned to emerge. Think of this not as erasing who you were, but as revealing who you've always been beneath the noise. A beautiful practice during this phase is simplification. Not as an aesthetic, but as an energetic reset. Look around your environment, especially your personal space, your closet, your work desk, your phone screen. What items, images, or reminders still reflect the version of you that's ready to be released? Don't force it. Just observe. And then, with compassion, start to remove what feels like residue instead of reflection. This isn't about control. It's about clarity. As you do this, deepen the work with a simple journal ritual. Write down 5 things you are willing to stop identifying with. These can be roles you no longer want to carry, habits that limit you, or stories you've outgrown. For example, I am no longer the one who always has to fix everything, or I release the belief that my worth depends on productivity. This is not a task of rejection, but of refinement. You are not erasing yourself, you're coming home. There is a teaching that says the self is not a fixed object, but a flowing current. The more tightly we grasp at who we think we are, the more suffering we create. But when we loosen our grip, even slightly, we begin to sense something much more alive underneath a self that is responsive, aware, and ever-changing. Leo, you are not just your past, nor are you limited to what others expect of you. You are a process. A becoming. And that becoming accelerates when you stop performing and start listening. You don't have to know exactly who you're becoming. You only need to let go of who you're not. From that space, a deeper wisdom begins to guide you, not from outside, but from within. And as that guidance becomes more consistent, you'll start to notice your decisions become lighter, your presence more grounded, and your joy less dependent on circumstance. That is the quiet power of rebirth. Not a loud transformation, but a soft return. Not a new version of yourself, but the most honest one. As we come to the close of this journey together, Leo, I want to remind you of something simple, yet powerful. You were never lost, you were only layered. Beneath the masks, beneath the roles, beneath the striving to be more, you were always whole. And this moment, this exact moment right now, is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to your original light, the one that has never needed to prove anything to be worthy. You don't have to shine for others to see you. You shine because that is your nature. You lead not because you're louder, but because your presence invites truth. And you love not because you're perfect, but because your heart is big enough to feel deeply, break gently, and still remain open. This is what true strength looks like. Quiet. Rooted. Unshakable from within. Everything you've just experienced in this reading, from confronting the shadow of performance, to reclaiming your power, to honoring your truth in relationships, to letting go of an old self that no longer fits, it all leads to one essential truth. Your light does not come from outside. It comes from alignment. And alignment only happens when you stop rushing, stop reaching, and start listening. Start living as though your peace matters. As though your clarity is enough. As though your joy doesn't need permission. So I invite you, before you close this video, to pause and ask yourself, what have I been holding on to that no longer reflects who I truly am? Where am I still choosing safety over honesty? What small, courageous step can I take today to live a life that feels more like mine? Maybe it's a conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's saying no to something that once defined you. Maybe it's writing down your personal manifesto, a declaration of who you are becoming, not for the world to applaud, but for your own heart to witness. And maybe, just maybe, it's finally believing that you are allowed to grow even if it makes others uncomfortable. You are allowed to evolve without explanation. You are allowed to be free. If you felt seen or supported by anything in this message, I would love to hear from you. Comment below and share one thing you're ready to release, or simply type, "I'm ready to return to my inner light." Your voice might just help another Leo feel less alone. Because here in the Eternal Mindfulness community, we're not just watching horoscopes, healing through them, growing through them, and supporting each other every step of the way. Thank you for being here. Thank you for opening your heart to this message. Your presence means more than you know. Every like, every comment, every subscription helps keep this channel alive and glowing, and allows me to continue bringing you these soul-guided messages exactly when you need them. If this video resonated with you, I hope you'll take a moment to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's next in your journey. But most of all, I hope you carry this reminder into your day. You don't need to force the light. You already are the light. You don't need to chase clarity. You only need to stop running from it. You don't need to be more. You only need to return. So Leo, will you take that first step inward? Will you trust that what's falling away was never your true reflection and that what's rising now is? Will you stay with yourself, even when the world grows loud? Let this be your moment. Let this be your turning point. And remember, you never lost your light. You just forgot how beautifully it burns when it comes from within. I'll see you again soon, under the next sun. Until then, stay grounded, stay open, and stay true.